Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my studio. Here I'm going to do another watercolor demonstration, and I'm broadcasting live from my studio, and I'm broadcasting to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and later on I'll put it on Instagram. And I'm in my studio today with my wife, Gloria,
Hello, everybody.
and she'll be monitoring the broadcast and also the chat room. Now, the chat room is on, it's live, so if you have a question or comment during the broadcast, send me a message on the chat page, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And after the broadcast, you can also make comments in the description below of the video, and give me a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Oh, hi, Brazen Harden. Welcome aboard. Glad to see you again. Thank you for staying in touch, and we hope to get a lot more people watching today. Okay, today I'm going to be working on a watercolor techniques, and the technique is going to be using my special clear plastic wrap, and I'm going to show you a couple of techniques I use with that, and I'll actually do a couple of paintings, and then we'll talk about it and give you a nice demonstration, show you how to use it. So let me go over to my painting table, and let me get started. Okay, I've got a couple of photographs here I'm going to use for reference. This one here is a landscape with. I picked this one because I have grass in the foreground, a little pathway going up here, a road, grass in the foreground. I got some trees in the background, and that's kind of what I wanted to show today. And I got the sunshine coming up, and I'll show you how I handle that with the clear wrap. And then I have another one that, if I have time, I'm going to do a second one. Here I'm going to concentrate on rocks. You can see the rocky shore here, the rocks, and water. And the water here in the foreground, and the rocks here in the middle ground. The background is a mountain, so it doesn't really matter. I'll show you how we handle all three of those, and plus a little bit of sky. So those are my reference photographs for today. So I'll put these over here. Okay, now on my what I normally do is I do a design sketch. So I've got two design sketches for the landscape. It's going to just simply be very simple. A foreground, it will be a pathway, foreground, trees in the background, and a tree. I'm going to concentrate on the tree trunks and then the tree tops up here. Those three areas, three levels, and then down here on the rocks, I'm going to have the water in the foreground right down here. Then I'll have rocks in the middle ground, a small mountain, and a sky up here. Okay, so I'm going to work. This is a demonstration of texture, and so therefore there's a lot to do after the painting is done. But this is phase one, where you want to get some texture. So this one here, I've mounted. Let me show you my setup here. Now I've mounted the. This is a eighth sheet. I took a quarter sheet and cut it in half, so I got 1/8 of a sheet of watercolor paper. It measures about 10 by 8.5 by 11 inches wide, 8.5 inches high. And I've gone ahead and put my design sketches here on both of these. I've got two panels here ready for today's demonstrations. Okay, so I've used watercolor, archival watercolor. That's Gemini 140-pound cold press watercolor. Now over here, I just have another palette I use when I go in the studio, and also I can take this Plein Air, and I've got my colors here I'm going to use in today's demonstration. And this is typically what I use. I got some yellows and greens, a little bit of blue, and down here I got a little bit of purple, which is my Quinacridone Violet, and then I have burnt sienna here in the corner, and yellow ochre. So burnt sienna, yellow ochre. This is yellow deep. I have yellow lemon over here. Here I have a couple greens, green number 1, green number 2, and then I have ultramarine blue here on the side. So those are the colors I'm going to use today in both demonstrations. As far as paintbrushes, I'm going to start out using the 1/2 inch flat from Holbein, 1/2 inch flat. It's a synthetic brush, but very, very, very handy. You see me paint that just about every week when I try. And this is the number 10 round brush that that I'm going to use for painting on. Okay. I got my water and bucket and so forth. Okay, so let me get started here. What I'm going to do, and the important thing is today, I'm going to use clear plastic wrap. Clear plastic wrap, and you can get this at any grocery store. I bought this at the grocery store, and it's all ready to go. So I'm going to be using a little bit of that today, because that's what today's demonstration is all about. So I'm going to move this down into the center of the table. Ready to go. And now there's two ways I can paint, and I've tried them both ways. I could do a wet on wet, and I can do wet on dry. Now wet on wet, I'd have to wet the paper first, and then paint on top of that and let the water flow. And wet on dry, I leave the paper dry and then paint over that with a nice loose color combination. So the only problem with either one of those, the wet on wet, it takes a lot longer to dry. And when I do that, I usually leave it dry for several hours or even overnight. So today I'm going to do a wet on dry because it'll dry faster. And so for demonstration purposes, that's what I want to do. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So the first thing I'm going to put in here, I'm going to put in the pathway. So I'm going to go back to my reference line. I'm going to get the pathway in right here. And I got it drawn in here on my demonstration sheet here. And I'm going to start with that with a light yellow ochre. I'm using a paintbrush now. I'm going to use the paint. So I'm going to put the pathway in with a brush. And as far as texture, I'm going to let it run together and let it blend on its own. And I can use, let's see, I can use some brush stroke. I'm going to pick up a little bit of, I've used yellow ochre, now it's burnt sienna. I'm going to pick up a little bit of Quinacridone Violet. And I'm going to lay the brush down on the flat surface. Give me a little dry brush. So I'll get texture by your brush strokes this way. Okay. And I'm going to take the dot spray bottle. This is a pound in a bottle with a dot sprayer with just water, sold exclusively at Everett Watercolors. And I'm going to just spray a little bit of water on that. And now I'm going to drag that brush around. I don't want it too thick. I don't want it too thick. I'm going to keep it as okay. And what I'll do is here on the burnt sienna, take that burnt sienna and bring it up in here. So I got my pathway pretty well set. And the pathway is nice and wet. And I've got it from light to dark, so that gives me a depth factor. Now I'm going to go ahead and dry that real fast here. I'm going to dry this part of the painting. So from the design, I've got the pathway here. Now the rest of the painting here, I'm going to use the watercolors, wet on dry, and I'm going to use the cling film with a plastic clear wrap. There's several names for it. Saran wrap is one, clear plastic wrap is another, cling wrap. There's several brands and several names on the market. But I think everybody knows what a clear food wrapping material is from the grocery store. Okay, that's nice and dry. All right, now I'm going to start using the paints now and start putting in some of the. I'm going to start here on the left side, and I'm going to use. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and get the brush nice and clean. Make sure there's no paint on there. I'm going to pick up yellow ochre, and I'm going to go in. I want to stay light up here. Just dab it in. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of ultramarine blue on the brush. And I'm going to kind of not splatter it in, but I'm going to just wipe it over that. Just make a nice rough that's going to mix up, the yellow and blue is going to mix up to make a green. And I'm going to make it a little bit darker on the edge over here and a little bit darker at the bottom. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that yellow. I'm going to dab that in there. So I'm mixing, I'm doing wet on wet, and I'm, as far as mixing, but I started out on dry paper. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, just that one section there, I'm going to take a little bit of the clear wrap. I'm going to tear a little section off. And then I'm going to take a little section. What I'll do now while I'm here, I'm also going to take a pair of scissors, just cut a section of this out. I'm not going to use the whole section, okay? Because I'm only going to, what I'm doing here now, if you're going to use texture using this technique, sometimes you don't want to put clear wrap on the whole painting. You just want to put it on sections. So I'm going to put this right over here in this section here on the left. So, and it's going to be crumpled up, because I'm going to make this look like grass. So I want to have lots of texture on it. So kind of mix it up a little bit, get it spread out. Then I put it down on top of the paper. Okay, and then I press down on it. Press down on the paper and kind of squeeze around. And I'm making a design I'm taking my fingertips and my fingernails, and I'm kind of moving it around. So what I've got, I started there now. So I'm going to let it lay there and let it dry. Okay, once you get it set in there, now when I leave it overnight, sometimes I'll lay something on top of it. There's a pressure, but just pressing down on it lightly, leave it there and let it dry. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to start out with the lemon yellow. I'm just going to stick it in there. Then I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that, more of the blue. Again, I'm going to make it darker on the sides and at the bottom. Now I'm going to pick up a little more of the blue now. I'm just going to dab it in a little bit more. Let that paint mix on its own. I'm going to take a little more blue, just a touch. A little more yellow. Kind of mixing it up on getting a little more yellow in there. I want it to be green, so I'm putting more yellow into the mix. So I'll do a little wet on wet mixture there on the paper. Okay, now I also, what you can do, I've used this before, so you can also reuse your. In fact, here's a piece here I've used before on another painting. So once you've taken it off, if it's dry, you can reuse it. So I'm going to use this piece here now to cover up this section here. So if you start new, you start out with a new piece of paper. Now it's all crinkled up. And we'll start out here in the top.
The one you're reusing though is with light colors, the same colors.
What's your question again?
That the reusable
section?
wrap, the colors that were on there.
It doesn't matter. It's going to mix. So yeah, if you're using the same colors in another painting or another section with the same, you can repeat the process. No, I don't keep a certain color for as a savings, because they mix on the paper with anything. It doesn't matter. That's not that important. Okay, now I'm moving the paper around now to get the nice texture. I'm squeezing it, moving it. You can move it around and make your texture yourself. make the shapes underneath there you want. Okay, and it looks messy on the paper now, but that's what it's going to look like while it's drying. Okay, so we'll let that dry for. Give that a chance to dry a little bit. But I can go ahead now and I can start on the next section. That's what I'm going to do. It may be a little risky, but I'm not. No, it's okay. I like to take chances. It's not gonna hurt anything. Okay, because it's a demonstration. All right. So now the middle ground. I'm going to put those trees, the tree trunks. So here I'm going to use the same sort of setup here, but let's see. I'm going to use a flat brush. I think the flat brush will work a little better. I'm going to use the flat brush, and I'm going to pick up a little. Now, I'm going to move. I got that little. If you remember the photograph, there's a little bit of sunshine coming through the trees over here. Okay, a little sunshine, a little light area here, and the tree trunks. There's all kinds of tree trunks along here. That's what I'm trying to capture. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick up a little bit of. I'm going to start a little bit of yellow ochre first. No, I changed my mind. I'm going to take up a little bit of lemon yellow. I want really light. So I'm going to put a little bit of that right in here in the middle. So that's going to be the lightest section right here. That's going to be a light. It's going to be the section coming through the trees. It's going to have hopefully it'll show us light. And then I'm going to pick up the yellow ochre, and I'm going to put that into the tree line. So now it's light here, and it's going to get darker as I go out to the side because of the effect of light. I'm trying to get the effect of light here to show the sun coming through, but it's also getting darker as I move out to the side. And again, just developing it, just trying to paint an illusion of the light coming through that section, and then changing off to the sides. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of burnt sienna now. Now what I'm going to do, it's starting to dry on me, so I'm going to use the spray bottle, the dot spray bottle, and I'm going to wet the paper. I'm going to wet the paint a little bit, keep it nice and warm. I want to keep it wet because I'm going to put plastic wrap over top of it. So a little bit of yellow ochre here, and then mix it in with a little bit of burnt sienna. And you can take your time here. I just what I've done, I got my sections blocked off here. And I'm blocking, this is what I call a block in. It's like blocking in a regular painting, except I'm doing it by sections now. And this is to demonstrate how you would handle different sections of the painting. So this is how I'm going to handle the tree line. I'll put just a little more water on there, just a couple drops. Keep that mixture wet because I don't want it to dry completely. It's going to dry a little bit as you go along, but you can't stop that. Okay. So all right, so I've got my colors in there now. Okay, now I get my saran. I get my plastic wrap. I'll tear another piece off. I'll need a whole sheet now. I'll need a whole section now. So I'll take this and cut this off. All right, now on this particular one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it down on the color, on the wash. This is a wash I have down there. And then what I do is I put down, I'm going to stretch the paper this way. Up and down. I'm going to stretch it. So I'll get marks, stretch marks, up and down. So I'm pulling the bottom and the top at the same time to get a stretch mark. And what that's going to do is going to make the impressions of tree trunks on that middle ground, and that's what I'm looking for. So I'm pulling the paper. I'm pulling the plastic wrap in a horizontal position, horizontal directions. Both I'm holding the bottom and stretching the top.
You can see them start to form.
Yes, as you watch, now again, see, you have control over it. As long as it's wet, you can play with the plastic wrap, and you can form the direction of the folds the way you want. Here I want the folds to be vertical. Oh, okay, thank you. Now I'm going to press down lightly because I want the plastic wrap to adhere to the wet part. What happens is the plastic wrap will actually pull the paint up off the paper, so it'll leave those positive and negative marks. Okay, this is something you have to play with a little bit. Takes a little bit of practice sometimes. Okay, now the top I'm going to do up here is to be the tree top. That's going to be probably go faster. So I'll start out with a little bit of lemon yellow. A little bit of lemon yellow. Now I'm going to pair up that ultramarine blue. That's going to be a little bit, I'm going to make it darker, just like I did the other part of the painting. I do it darker on the sides and darker at the top, because it'll be lighter as I come down, because I got the sunlight behind the trees. And when you're doing a painting like this, or any other painting with using this sort of technique, it'll probably take a couple experimental runs to practice how to control where you want things. But with practice and so forth, and you take the hints I'm giving here, then we can make it work. Okay. Now I'll use the other part of this. I'll probably use another piece of plastic wrap. Okay, so I'll take. I have another old section here I used before. Doesn't see it. You can reuse this stuff. So I put it aside. So I'm going to lay this on top now. On top of what I just wet, still wet. And then I'm going to go in. I'm just going to do larger. Now it's not like I did at the bottom here. This is just going to pick up the little groups of leaves and so forth. It's a tree with the sun shining through. We'll see if that happens. Now you can see there with that plastic wrap. It looks like a mess. Okay, all right. Now we're gonna let that dry a little bit while we work on another painting. Okay, that's the application. I did down here. I put it down, and I remember I did the scrunching, smaller marks for the grass. Here, remember I stretched it. I stretched this section here to give me a long trunk motion. And up here, I just wanted to get large sections of color for the treetops. Okay, I'm going to set this aside. Okay. Lay it down here for a minute. Let that dry for a few minutes. All right, now we get working on the second one. Okay, now the second one. So this is the first one. We got the pathway and we got the tree, grass in the foreground. Then I got the trees in the middle ground. We're not going to do much sky. The sky is going to be the light coming through the trees. But I did get the trunks, the two trunks, and you get the tree tops up here over here. That's what I painted. Okay, now we're going to go on to the second demonstration, how to paint rocks and water. So rocks and water, sometimes they're a challenge to artists, but you can eliminate some of the obstacles of texture by using this technique. So I'm going to start here in the middle. I've got a draw. I got my drawing on here. This is the water down here, and I got rocks here in the middle ground. I got the sky up here in the top, in the back, way on the background at the top. All right, so I'm going to start with the rocks first. So I'm going to start with a little bit of burnt sienna. I think in the far the big ones here, I'm going to take a little more ultramarine. Ultramarine blue up back here, because these are further away, but I'm going to mix it in with more color anyway. So that could be like I'm building like the edge of this rock formations. Building an irregular edge of this rocky slope up here. Then I'm going to mix a little bit of burnt sienna in with that. A little more over here. So I'm putting the paint on here wet on dry again. I didn't wet the paper first. I've done that. It takes a little while for too much longer. It takes too long for it to dry out, especially for the demonstration. So that's why I'm going to on the dry paper, and it works just as well for demonstration purposes. All you're missing here is a wait time. If you're doing this in your own studio, then you let it sit and let it dry overnight. Down the ground, now coming forward, I'm going to make larger rocks. I've got a little bit more burnt sienna in these forward rocks here. Now, also, while I'm doing the rocks here, I'm trying to build some shapes. I'm trying to paint in some shapes of rocks so that when I put the plastic wrap on, it'll keep those shapes more or less. So I'm building some shapes here as I go along. Of rock sizes and so forth. And I'll keep them a little darker on the outside. Now it starts to dry on me, so I'm going to put a little spray a little bit of water up there to keep the paint wet. I want the paint wet. I don't want it to dry until I get this plastic wrap on top. Okay, all right. So now we'll go down. I'll give me another piece of plastic wrap. So I'm going to take my handy dandy container here and tear up another piece. Okay, and I'm going to lay that on top of the rocks. I'll lay that on top of the rocks. I'll start down here at the bottom of the area, and I'm going to go ahead. The same way I did with the last section. I'm going to make some marks. I'm pressing it into the paper, and then I'm forming shapes here of lines, so it'll break up this section. And you can imagine every time you do this, it's going to be different. And that's the best part about art, is that on this section, this sort of thing here, you don't get a repeat chance. Okay, I'll press down lightly. That's so that the plastic wrap sticks to the paper or to the paint. Okay, now let's work on the water. Now water, just take a look at that photograph. You'll notice here the water has got it's got movement. See, it's moving from left to right or right to left. You can see the movement in the water right here, from either wind blowing or it might be a current flowing here. So there's a horizontal movement in water, and that's what we're going to imagine that we're going to make a copy of that as best as we can. So I'm going to start out here with a little bit of ultramarine blue. Now I'm adding a little bit of water to that, so I make it. I don't want a real dark section. I want some light and dark. But so for the lighter sections, I add a little bit of water to the mixture. And to the darker sections, I add a little more paint. And I might leave a little bit of white paper showing, just to show something movement in the water too, also. As before, I'm going to make it a little bit darker here in the foreground. Darker here and then lighter as I go toward the middle ground. So dark to light. And you can control that by how much paint you put in your brush. And I've also experimented that, you know, if this first layer doesn't work for you, you can go back and relayer again on top of it with another layer of paint, and then use more plastic wrap on top of that. So there's always a second chance or third chance. One of my philosophies is I don't give up on this paper. Just keep on working it. I got some little dark areas in there. So I'm making a concerted effort here to keep a linear movement in my water, a linear movement. That will identify this as water flowing, the movement in the water. Okay, so let's take another. I'll use this. Now this is a used one. I used this before with that, but I'm going to turn it over here. So what I'm going to do now I want it to go left and right. So I'm going to put more. I'm going to stretch the paper left and right. I'm pointing this way, pointing the edges, pointing the ends. So I want to get, just like I did with the trees, I was pulling it this way. Now I'm going this way. So I grab the plastic wrap and I stretch it to the side so that I get those marks flowing from horizontally. Then I can press it down on the paint, do some more stretching. Again, you can tell that a lot of everything I'm showing you today is very experimental. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to let that one. Now up here. We get the top of this. Yeah, I can play with that. Okay. What I'm going to do here now is just going to put in a very light brown. I'm going to use a little bit of burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of yellow ochre. So I'm going to make this back mountain here. The light's kind of hitting that, so it's going to be lighter. And mix a little bit of ultramarine in with that, get to gray it down behind. So it'll be more of a grayish. The yellow ochre and the yellow and the blue will tone it down to a gray color. And the burnt sienna.
You have a comment from Alice. Great technique.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, this is more fun to do, and it's something you can play with over and over again. And like here, I'm showing a whole painting using it, but you can use sections. If you're working on water and you wanted to do texture on the water, then you just do the water section with the plastic wrap. If you were doing the mountains, you can do it on the mountains. If you're doing trees and so forth, you can do it on the tree section. So you can break it down and to make it simple and keep it isolated to one section. And now up here, I'm just going to put a little bit of blue up here for the sky. So I'm going to do a nice light blue. So what I'm doing, I'm painting this in with a brush. I'm trying to finish this off. I'm not going to use any, there's no texture up here. You don't have texture in the sky. The only texture you have is a little bit of clouds, but we're not going to do those today. We're going to do just straight blue sky. And usually I try to make the bottom of the sky a little lighter than the top to show atmospheric distance, atmospheric perspective. Atmospheric perspective is the sky is a little darker at the top and it comes down and gets lighter. And usually one side is a little darker, so a little darker over here, so the sun might be coming down from this side over here. Okay. All right, I'm going to set this one aside, and we'll come back to that. We'll let it dry a little bit. I'm going to bring the first one back now. All right, let's take a look at this. Okay. All right, let's see what took place here. Now the chances are, the timing of this, you can pull up the plastic, and if it doesn't grip it, then you pretty well can pull it up. Okay, it might be a little bit damp. This might be a little bit damp, but it's okay. I want to demonstrate to you what you can see. Okay, and then remember you can save the little pieces. You can do another section later on. But don't throw away your plastic wrap away. It can be reused. Okay. Now we'll bring this one up and do the same thing. I'll hang this up here. And okay. Now I'm going to pick up the middle here of the trees, the tree trunks. Okay. Okay. And the top on top is where the trees are. Okay. All right, let's take a look at what happened. Okay, I got a pathway, and now what we can do now is go in with a brush, and I can pick up a little color here, and I can fill in some of the spots, grass and so forth. And on the trees, I can come in here with a little bit of ground at the bottom here. Pick up a little bit of green there. Okay, so you can see the grass has got some texture to it, and we can add to that. The tree trunks, you can see the items of the trees, and up here we can also make a little darker sections up here, and you can add in colors on top of this. I lost the sun here, but that's okay. You know, that can be added in. You can always add. I could always add dark here, keep that lighter, and always just keep adding dark values out here on the side. Bring it in closer and closer. So it's just not going to be a completed painting. This is just a demonstration how to use the plastic wrap and different things. This was the foreground with grass and the road. I did with brush. Here I did the middle ground tree trunks. And up here I did the top of the trees up here with a darker mix, okay? And we can go back. I'm going to show you one I've done a little bit later. I might show it to you now while we're here. Yeah. Just see. Yeah, give me the black. Give me the. No. Just the top. Just the frame, honey.
Oh.
That's what I want. Okay, so this is one I did earlier. And you can see. Okay, that's the one I did it. Well, I went back in, like I said before. You can do it twice. So I went back the second time, darkened the treetops, went in, added some little textures to and I kept that open space here light for the sun, and then I added more texture down here for the grass. Okay, so the grass is very simple. You take a bristle brush like this. This is a 1/2 inch bristle brush, and I take that and I get some little green. I'll pick up some green number 1 here, and I can go in and just do a brush stroke. So I can see after it's dry. This hasn't completely dry yet. I'm just demonstrating here a little bit that after it dries, you can go back in and add in details like that, little grass strokes like that. You can darken the tree trunks, and you can see here on this one I've added a couple dark tree trunks here, dark and light. Okay. So that's kind of what at the results I would do is something like that. Okay. And as far as the trees up here, you know, we can darken them up just a little bit. You can come in here and put in a darker background. Bring these trees forward. You can darken some of the tree. You can darken some of the tree trunks. You might want to put one in here around the sun. And put a little darker tree trunk in there. So see, there's all kinds. After it's dried, there's all kinds of things you can do. You can add in tree trunks, limbs, add in some more foliage, and so forth. On the foliage itself, you know, we can build a little. You can build a little at the tree. Have the branches come down a little more. You can break them up a little more. You know, make this a little more abstract up here. So you can change that a little bit. So you can change the edge of the trees, add more color up there and so forth. But this was painting each section one at a time all together. And if you were just interested in grass, fine, just do the grass work. If you're interested in the tree trunks, you want to define those, then use the plastic wrap for that, or plastic sheet for that. Okay. Well, let me bring up my rocks. See how that did. Now here's the one I did on the rocks. So let's pull up the rocks, and then we'll pull up the water. Okay. Again, save your plastic. Don't throw it away. Let it dry out, and you can use it again. Okay. All right. So there's the rough there. We got the rocky coast. That's what we wanted, and we have the water here, moving with movement. You can see the lights and darks, a little bit of sky and a background in there. So that works pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now there's lots of things. Again, things you can do here. The same thing. We can go in. We can go in and make edits. We can make editing on the rocks. You can build up the shapes. Add color. But the texture, the shapes are already there. Okay? And you can go back. Now, I've done it before. You go back and you can repaint over top of this and do it again. And do it again. You do it a second or third time. The same way with the water. Again, the water turned out pretty good. It's a rough first start. But that's texture in the water. Remember, I pulled the plastic wrap sideways, left and right. Pulled it, stretched it to get those strips. Up here, I just set it down and moved my fingers around to get shapes of rocks. I wanted to break up the spaces and so forth. The background mountain and the sky was done with a brushwork. That's all that was done, just added to it. Okay. Let me show you. Here's one I did earlier. This is a little more dramatic. I added a little more paint to it. You can see there, I went and I pushed the color down here in the water, and I can lighten that up. I can add white paint to it, or I can lift. I can do lifting also. And I got a lower round of rocks here, and a background rocks here in the middle ground, and that same colors here in the sky, and this background mountain there. Okay. So this is kind of like an end result of what you can do at some point at this point here. So it's not a finished product, but it's the beginning. Go back and rework that even more. You can do lifting. You can add color. Remember, you can add color easily by just putting another layer on, or you can lift by wetting the area with a brush, and then taking a tissue or a towel and just wipe it up. It'll wipe right out. It won't reduce it entirely back to in the paper, but you'll lighten that tone. You'll lighten the values, especially in the water and so forth like that. Okay. Okay. All right. I want to show you some examples now that I've done. I'll move this aside. Hey, you want to hang that stack on you? Yeah. Thank you. All right. Okay. I want to show you some things that I've done. Now this was a sample. Again, I did the tree trunks here with this. That's that same stretching. I just laid the paper down. I laid the paint on the paper, and just stretched the plastic wrap and let it dry. Okay, and I had a center section here for the tree trunks, and this would be the sunshine shining through the trees. This was more or less the grass. See, you get real fine edges. Real fine design in there. It could be grass and so forth. And you can add grass strokes here on top of that, dark and lights and so forth. So that's when it's already dry. Now here's an example. I'll show you this. Here's one here. Yeah, here's one here. I did this a couple days ago. Last week I did this. This was just using the plastic wrap, plastic film, and then what I did. This is on watercolor paper. Let it dry. Then I Xeroxed this on a piece of plain paper. So I Xeroxed this and put it on paper. Then I took this with me outdoors on Plein Air, and I found a tree, and I drew the tree shape with a pen, with an ink pen. And you can see the shapes in there. There's the limbs out here, the trunks down here, and so forth. And it came out really nice. And I made a shorty out of that. You might find that on my Everett Watercolors page on YouTube. And I did a shorty on this particular here. So this I used this photographed, reproduced copy on regular copy paper, and went out and I had an actual tree I'm looking at, and I actually drew the shape of the tree on top of the painting. This is the rough. This is my interpretation of the tree. Okay. Now I could go back in now. I could add color to this and do other things. So that's again another design point. Okay. Now another thing. My wife Gloria is doing. She's card making, and this is also very beneficial to card makers. If you have a design like this, let's take the one I did here with the tree trunks. Doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be tree trunk. Could be anything. And then she has stamps. These are silhouettes. And just by putting those in on the paper.
Well, I stamped that on acetate so you could use it in the demo.
Yeah, this was stamped on acetate. So, but you'd be on regular paper. You stamp right on this design here. Stamp right on it, and then you come up with a design on the card. Then of course you put your summon on there and so forth.
Put it on the other side. I want to see what it looks
like. Oh,
like.
the green? Oh, yeah. Oh, the green. Yeah, with a green background?
Yeah.
Okay. This way, this way. So there's all kinds of ways to do it. Now, here's one I did. Now, here's one this might even look better. This was one I did another practice one. This is kind of light value. I used yellow, red, and blue, and just mixed them together. You can see it make the green. I got the orange, a little bit of light orange, a little bit of light yellow, and then again you could use that as a background, a light background with a silhouette of a stamp, flowers, silhouettes of trees and so forth. This would be a great background. Okay, so for card making, this is excellent. This is an excellent way to do a background on a cardstock. And let me show you a little bit of that. You can do that. This is on watercolor paper. put that down. You know, I did this one. This I put on watercolor canvas. This is the watercolor canvas, which I've done a demonstration on last week. This is watercolor canvas, and what I did was I went ahead, I put the watercolors on top, and then I put the plastic wrap on top of that, and let it dry overnight because it was pretty wet. And then I put a little frame around it. It makes a nice little painting. Now, I don't know which way it'll go. It could be a vertical format. This could be the top. This could be the side. So as an abstract view, it could take several. It could shape several angles. It could be a horizontal angle. It could be a vertical angle. So that's your choices. But that was done on watercolor canvas with watercolors on top and let it dry. But I used the plastic wrap to get to the background design. That background design. Okay. But I had to let that one dry overnight because it was really wet when I stopped. Okay, there's one more I wanted to show. Now, there's one more I want to show, which I think is pretty interesting also. I think I mentioned before in my previous programs, I do a sketch and walk, a walk and sketch notebook here. And what I did here in my walk and sketch journal, I took some extra pieces of paper. Now this is smooth texture. I don't even know what the paper is, but it has a smooth surface, almost like warm press or hot press. Hot press has a very smooth surface, or even other papers. Other papers that have a shiny surface on it. I wanted to see what would happen, so I went ahead and glued those sheets here in my journal. And then I went ahead and put red, white, and blue over here, made a design. Over here I did some leaves, and I did some rocks down here. So I had a couple of versions here. Now what I did on top of this, I went back in with my Holbein color pencil, which I have available on Everett Watercolors also. These come in all kinds of sets, sets of 12 and 24, so forth. Then I go in and I went in and I started to add color on top of this with a colored pencil. And you can see here, I'll bring it up close. This is a work in progress. Very interesting designs. Okay, so the plastic wrap gave me the design, gave me the texture design. Over here, the same thing. I started in with some green pencils and started adding in some color on top of this. Change that. Then down here on the rocks, these are, well, I'm calling them rocks, but they look like rocks. The browns and yellows, a little bit of magenta down here, a little bit of Quinacridone Violet down here. But look at all that texture, and that happened the same procedure. Put the paint on there, different colors, then press the plastic wrap on there, and then play around with it and get shapes, all kinds of shapes, and let it dry. This one here, I did stretching this way to get the rocks. I moved it out to the side. Here, I put it down and just pressed it and moved it around. This one, I put the plastic wrap on and kind of moved around my fingers and got some big shapes. Big shapes and some smaller shapes. Okay, so I tested it out on smooth paper and it works out really well. I tested it out on rough paper, which is watercolor paper. And I tested it out on watercolor canvas. So really, you can use any surface that you have, any paper surface you have that's good for watercolors. It will work with both paint on and also with the plastic wrap technique of getting texture. And you come out with some real interesting designs, and that's what I found. Do we have any questions?
No, we're fine.
Okay. Okay. So I really prefer, and of course landscapes you have a ball with that. You can do trees and rocks and water, mountains, whatever, and that comes out great. But something like this is abstract, and then you go in and draw on top of that, draw your design on top of it. Is another way to do it. But I suggest before you, once you got a design on paper and you got it dry, then make a photo copy of it on regular paper, and then play with a design on top of that. Don't play with your design on this one. Play out with your design on here before you make any changes. Then you can add that design to your final one. So this kind of gives you a preparation. That would be my advice on that. Okay. So, without further ado, I think I'm going to take you back to the main camera. Get myself set up here. All right. That was my demonstration today of using plastic wrap for a watercolor painting. And the only thing you have is a time factor. If you want to work a little bit quicker and do it by sections, if that's what you're working on, then just go wet on dry. Put the watercolor on top of the dry paper and then make sure it's wet. That's why I use the spray bottle to keep it moist. It at least has to be moist enough to stick to the plastic wrap. And then you lay the plastic wrap on it, and then you can move designs around with your hand pressures and so forth to make it vertical, horizontal, or just abstract shapes. And then you let it dry. I have several things in the studio that I use for holding the pressure down, those rocks, and I have bricks and everything else that I use to put on top to weight it down. Then if you're a stamper and you want to try it in stamping, it works great for backgrounds. I recommend it highly. Do a nice colorful background, get a little texture in there with the plastic wrap, let it dry out, let it get dry, completely dry. Let it dry overnight, I would recommend. And then take the plastic wrap off, and then you're ready to work on it. Either draw, you can paint, or you can stamp on it. It all works. So appreciate you all looking in today. If you have any questions, you can write them down in the comments below. And I'm back on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week. And I'll be in this evening at 7:30 p.m. with Simply Drawing with Everett. I'll be back at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I do a little weekend drawing called Anyone Can Draw with One Line Only. And I got a lot of viewers looking at that. I think I have a lot of fun. And I also do quickies on the weekend, which you might enjoy watching. If you're subscribed to my channel, you'll be notified of all the videos that I put on YouTube, and you can share. Give me a thumbs up and a like. It's appreciated. It helps with my rating. So until next week, you all stay safe and take care. The weather is still beautiful. Very little rain. The sun is nice. So it's time to get out. Autumn is coming up, so this is a perfect time just before and after those trees start turning color. I can't wait forward to it. Spring and fall is my two favorite times of the year, for watercolors especially, with all the colors and changes out there. So you all be safe, and I'll see you next week on the next live video. Bye.